If you're not from the UK, let me take a second and explain to you exactly what Only Fools and Horses is. Starting in 1981, Only Fools is a sitcom in which two brothers, Del Boy and Rodney, attempt to try and get through life by wheeling and dealing, selling whatever legally dubious goods they can get their hands on, whilst trying to make it through life's trials and tribulations. I'll explain more as the video goes on, but suffice to say, this sitcom is a veritable British institution. It's basically been on TV constantly ever since and is one of our most beloved shows, of which pretty much everyone has watched. So of course America came knocking, only they came knocking quite late. In 2012, a mere 31 years after the British show launched, an American pilot was produced, which was called The Kings of Van Nuys. The pilot never made it to air, but thanks to this random YouTube channel, it now exists for us to watch, and today we're going to be taking a look at it and comparing it to the British original. It's also worth saying that they actually made this pilot twice, with the same cast and crew each time. I don't know if this is the first pilot or the second pilot, but either way it doesn't really matter. We'll just watch it and see what we find out. The quality of the video for this is quite bad, and it's got that weird timer in the corner, but what can you do? We was never meant to see it. The show starts with a large man carrying a stack of boxes, and okay, we need to pause right here. Firstly, look what they did to our boy Rodney. He's no longer the lanky, uncomfortable in his own skin, forever a teenager, boy wonder we came to love, but Donnie, a big hulking caveman, quite the difference. And amazingly, Christopher Lloyd of Back to the Future fame is playing Grandad. In walks Del Boy, and he is looking flash in an old-fashioned style suit.
Guys, how hot do I look in this jacket, huh? This is a genuine Dolce & Gabbana knockoff.
So far, no problems, right? But take a little look at their surroundings. Their apartment is massive, and although there's a load of stuff, it looks pretty clean and open. This is quite the difference from the original flat, situated in Nelson Mandela House, which is tight and cramped, messy, and somewhat run down. I'd like to take a second here to talk about the casting. Del and Rodney are supposed to be brothers with a big age gap, and this is evident in all parts of their character, from the clothes they wear to the jokes they tell. It's a big part of their dynamic. The fact that Rodney is taller than his older brother, but frequently still seems younger through the way he acts or the naive things he does, really drives home this dynamic. But these two here in the American version don't seem that way. From a glance, I would not know they had an age difference at all, and I couldn't tell you what their characters were supposed to be. They try this little bit of exposition, but the jokes don't really land.
Ingrates. Unbelievable. After everything I've done for the two of you. I can't believe this, Gramps. Who took you in when your career as a stuntman ended because William Shatner ruptured your testicle on the set of T.J. Hooker?
I can't wear underwear anymore. Shatner took that from me.
And Donnie, who gave up his youth to take care of you when Mom died and Dad went out to sign us up for karate and never came back?
Grandad is a lot more involved in this one than he was in the original. In the original, he was basically always in the flat in his chair, but in this, he's out and about just as much as the other two. It's not a great idea, because Christopher Lloyd has such a striking on-screen presence that he just steals the attention from the other two. He doesn't look like some feeble old man like they are implying. So far, the show isn't good, but I will say this much for the pilot. It is trying to do a lot more to distance itself from the original than many remakes. A lot of US remakes of British shows are basically word-for-word copies of the original script, but because of the amount of specific cultural references in Only Fools, that would just never work. They've tried to make it their own, and so far it's not really working, but I can appreciate that they at least made that attempt. They then proceed to dash any hope I had of these characters with some more terrible jokes. Donnie says he has an idea for an app that predicts if people's babies will grow up to be sexy or dogs, and just what is this?
I got an idea for this app that predicts if your baby's gonna be sexy or a dog. I call it Sexy or Dog.
They completely seem to forget that the characters are supposed to be endearing underdogs that we root for, despite all the hijinks, but moments like this just make us dislike them. So this bar scene takes quite a while. They sort of just walk around to different parts of it, trying to tell jokes and clumsily giving exposition. It's not clear what they're doing or why they're here, but it's a scene, I suppose. The barmaid Ruby is pretty much an original character. There are various bar owners in Only Fools, but none of them quite match up with this character, so that's different. Next up, we actually do have another adaptation of a character from the original, and this time it's an adaptation of Trigger. Trigger is perhaps many people's favourite side character from Only Fools, having some of the most memorable one-liners in the show's history. He's meant to be dim-witted, but nice and loyal, and he's just funny. So, in Kings, he turns up in a DeLorean, which has been turned into a monster truck. This is just completely bizarre. I know they cast Christopher Lloyd in the show, but this pilot is only 8 minutes in, and they've already made a Back to the Future reference. I can't understand it. It's so out of place. That being said, that car does look amazing, and I'd love to have it. Trigger in this version is just nothing like the original. He's a faux gangster wannabe swagging around. Thankfully, he's not on screen for very long, but I've no idea why they used Trigger for this part. There's literally a character in Only Fools called Boise, who's known to be a dodgy car dealer. Why they didn't make his character be the one to sell them the car is a mystery. The scene ends with them driving the DeLorean back home, and Grandad makes a Back to the Future reference.
Listen, ladies, less talking and more driving to the hospital. You know, it might be the glass in my skull, but this car looks terribly familiar to me.
I thought this show was meant to be a sitcom, but things like this makes it feel more like one of those sketches you see on American late night chat shows. It's very weird tonally. It means you are very aware you are watching a TV show. Sitcoms are supposed to make you feel warm and fuzzy, and you get lost in the characters' lives, but this just instantly takes you out of it. The next scene sees Del trying to make some money from his new purchase with no luck, when we get this extremely weird homophobic joke.
I see your concussion has caused you to dress like a gay astronaut.
Come on, that's just terrible. I mean, I don't know how harsh I can be, as this was unaired, and clearly for a reason, but really someone actually wrote that joke down. Grandad swags around in his jumpsuit, and Donnie comes in and complains that he can't drive the DeLorean.
I hate you and I hate that car!
Then we get another Back to the Future joke.
And if they make a Back to the Future 4 using monster trucks, then baby, we are set for life.
Right, Back to the Future 4. Christopher Lloyd's probably dead.
Yeah, I think he is.
Seriously, this is absolutely bizarre. We get it. Christopher Lloyd played Doc Brown in Back to the Future, but he is allowed to play new characters. It's like he's playing himself on Saturday Night Live instead of a new character. It's such a strange choice to constantly reference it, like they're doing some kind of reunion show. There's another joke here which makes me think that this was written for a different cast. Del says this line.
You're the height of a child, and you can't get on certain roller coaster rides.
Which makes absolutely no sense. This is just a regular guy who's basically the same height as his brother, but sometimes looks taller because he's more dense. They can't have written that line with this actor in mind. Donnie storms out because he hates the DeLorean, and we move on to the next scene. There's not much to say about this one. They just walk around and talk about Donnie, with Grandad in the background exercising. At the end of the scene, we find out that, yes, they're still called Trotter.
Because let me tell you something, I don't need Donnie Trotter around to help me make excellent decisions.
Which really doesn't seem to match the characters. Next scene is Del trying to bang some girl who bites his tongue, completely random, out of place. We then get more of a focus on Grandad, who's trying to get back into stunt acting. Oh yeah, I didn't mention this earlier, but he is supposed to be a famous retired stunt actor that had to quit because William Shatner exploded his testicles or something. There's quite a lot of focus on Grandad in this show. In fact, he gets the main arc of the episode really, and has the most backstory. Given the amount of jokes about Back to the Future, he's practically the main character, which is a little strange. I guess they did this just because they was amazed they got to cast Christopher Lloyd in this role. He finds out that he's too old and tired to get into stunt acting, so whacks his friend over the head with a muffler for some reason. This means that his friend's stunt job is available, and Del Boy offers to fill it in. That right there is one of the main problems this pilot has. The actions and their consequences just make no sense. In Only Fools, Del and Rodney often get into lots of different pickles and scrapes, They get into these by making seemingly logical choices that end up going wrong, and then they try and make the best of that situation. Whilst it's a comedy, so it's outlandish, the series of events are always somewhat believable, and that is required for these type of sitcoms to actually be funny. But in this American version, the sequence of events just makes absolutely no sense logically. Del buys a DeLorean monster truck even though he has no money, so his granddad decides to resurrect his stunt career and hit some guy over their head with a muffler, and then the organisers of the stunt event decide they will let Del Boy be a stuntman in his DeLorean despite him having no experience or credentials, and this stunt is running away from a giant robot dinosaur that's trying to eat them. What? Donnie and Del make up, and the final scene of the show sees them getting attacked by Robosaurus. The end. So, what can we make of that pilot? Well, firstly, it's clear why they didn't pick this up and make it into a full series. The core problem with it is just that it isn't funny. The laugh track plays constantly, but there isn't anything to laugh to. The jokes they tell aren't actually jokes with setups and punchlines, but just characters saying some slightly mean things to each other or telling out of place stories. It's hard to be too critical of something that was cancelled because it was bad, as all I am doing is validating the decision of the studio execs. But they definitely made the right call. The pilot just doesn't have a heart, and it feels like it has no direction. It's really odd that they decided to make an adaptation of Only Fools anyway, and I do give them some credit for trying to make it their own. They didn't adapt the plot of any specific episode, instead choosing their own plot. They did keep the themes of the show, with it being about the brotherly relationship and their business ventures ultimately getting them into trouble, but just none of it works. Del and Donnie don't feel like brothers, and they don't have any kind of dynamic. Christopher Lloyd is just playing himself, and I can't understand what they was going with the granddad character. The setting is pretty nondescript, and overall it's just quite bad. I actually do think that an American remake could work in some form, but this clearly wasn't it. Thank you for watching this little video. As I mentioned at the start, there is this channel uploading a load of old unaired pilots, so if you want to watch the full thing, you can see it over there. If you want to support me making more videos, you can do the standard thing of subscribing, commenting and liking. You can go that one step further too, of signing up to my Patreon. It has a free trial, so you can sign up without worry, and there's some exclusive videos over there, with more coming each week. Finally, I have two other channels, Jordan HJ, which is about gaming, and Jordan's anime channel, which is obvious what it's about, so give those a look too. Goodbye.